So where are we headed to, baby?
To go look for a 142-year-old grave.
Nice. Everybody,
Hi.
we're back. So this video is pretty cool. It's kind of close to my heart. It's kind of near and dear. It's about us going on a journey to try and find the grave of my fourth great grandfather, Zoroaster Robinson. Pretty cool guy. But hey, before we get started, give us a like and subscribe if you would. It helps us out. Lets us know if anybody's actually enjoying this content or if we need to change it up. So a little bit about Zoroaster. He moved here from Georgia in 1834 with his family. And if those are people that are from Texas know, 1835, 1836 is when we started the battle for Texas independence from Mexico. He volunteered to go and was a part of the siege of Behar to help claim the Alamo. That was a pretty good battle, pushing the Mexican army out of San Antonio completely. They thought they had that done. And then obviously they surrounded the Alamo. So he volunteered to go with Captain Bennett to help Travis at the Alamo, but they got to as far as the Colorado River, and then with the Colorado River, they were told, hey, the Alamo has fallen. So they fell back and regrouped. He joined up with the army of Sam Houston. They went to San Jacinto, where Santa Anna and the Mexican army was defeated. So thus giving us our independence. Cool part of that story is, if you've seen that show, was it 1883?
Yeah.
Where they're coming and they're having to cross the rivers and they're having to do all that stuff. This kind of history of him and my family takes me back when I watch that show, and I think how tremendously difficult that life must have been. And he continued to volunteer. He left his family. He took the only horse they had, and he left his family, and he was at the Washington on the Brazos, which was the capital of Texas at the time, the proclaimed capital. And so as soon as the Battle of San Jacinto was over, he went to try and find his family, found his wife and daughter crossing rivers and in the Trinity River bottoms. From there, he got them safely down to what was Robertson County at the time, now Leon County. He got them down there, and then he volunteered again. Stayed in the Texas Army. He went to he joined up with Captain Pearson and did the scouting between the Nueces River and the Rio Grande River, because back then that area was kind of Mexico, Texas, but we claimed it all the way to the Rio Grande. Although Mexico only recognized the Nueces River. She's getting bored with my Texas history, but so he moved back to Robertson County, now Leon County, became a justice of the peace. Sat around doing his farming, doing his JP work, and then volunteered again during the Civil War. Fought with Garrison's company under Colonel Baylor's regiment in the Red River campaign. So, quick summary of why he's so important to me, why I think he's important to Texas, and why we wanted to make this trip. It was a journey, wasn't it?
Yep.
To try and find this his gravesite, which I have been told was it's called the Union Cemetery. But that was the name of the community. It's actually a Confederate cemetery for Confederates. So a little bit of the journey of how we get there is coming up next, right?
Yeah.
When we first set out, we decided we don't want to ride down I-45 all the way down there.
Right.
I mean, that's boring. Super slab, Onzi Belvin calls it. But so we decided to take a back route, which was going to put us through Groesbeck, Texas, a cool little town in Groesbeck. And I have some friends there, one of Sinclair's dear friends from the FFAs, Gracie. So I called her, my helmet, and I was like, hey, what's the name of that restaurant? So she told me it was Billy B's, and it was, on this highway 164 or something like that. So I'll let you talk about Billy B's. It's pretty cool.
Billy B's, when you pull up to it, it's like, it looks like an old barn, but it's actually where they sell and auction cattle. And we pulled up, and there's a bunch of farm trucks there, and definitely in the cowboy country of Texas. But inside this place, there's another place called Billy B's Restaurant, and they serve a really good menu of lunch items. I had a salad with grilled shrimp. Of course, his classic was grilled cheese with bacon.
Yes, grilled cheese with bacon.
But there were lots of things I saw being passed out to other people eating. Really good chicken fried steak, mashed potatoes and gravy, and rolls, and good home cooking. It was really good.
Yeah, and I definitely want to make, it's an active sale barn too, like she said, and you can hear cows in the back going, and but I definitely want to make that like a Southern Cruisers ride where we all
Southern Cruisers ride, but we'd have to probably make reservations.
Yeah,
or
because
something.
it's pretty tight seating.
Pretty tight seating in there.
And the cool thing too was that there was like people in suits.
Oh yeah.
Driven from wherever in Groesbeck, and people in suits and people in overalls and cowboys and.
Yeah, I believe there was a group of people from the hospital. They were in their scrubs and they were having their lunch together, and then businessmen behind us doing their lunch together, and yeah, it was definitely odd, but very good.
Yeah, very good. Worth the trip for sure. So the ride to get there, we planned it out, and we went down. How many miles was it?
It's
round trip.
330 on my bike, but we went extra on his bike because we had to drop off the Harley because it was a non-paved gravel road, and then we ended up going through a very long trip through a very bumpy pasture.
Yeah, we'll see some of that in a little bit. But so how we got there is my family had told me before that this grave was there and to contact this ranch, and we went to the Tractor Supply because we couldn't find any numbers that were current for this ranch.
What town was that? Tractor Supply.
Buffalo, Texas.
Buffalo, Texas.
So we went to Buffalo, Texas, and they're like, yeah, Los Lomas is 5,000 acres, man. We don't know, and we don't have phone numbers. And so we thought, heck, we'll just go for it and try. We ended up going to several houses that were on the ranch where the headquarters were. We went to those houses. They were all empty. Nobody was there. Nobody was manning the offices or the barns. And so, so I'll just show you where we finally ended up. So where are we?
Los Lomos Ranch.
Los Lomos Ranch in Buffalo, Texas. And we found the Union Cemetery, but apparently it's a lot harder to access than we thought. So we went to the ranch house and got a hold of the ranch manager. It's a 5,000 acre ranch. We got a hold of her, and she gave us the number for a lady. And then we called her husband, and he said he's 30 minutes away, but he doesn't know. So he's gonna come let us in, and then we just gotta go all the way across the pasture.
Because we gotta get into this pasture and it's locked up.
It's gonna be this difficult. So right now, we're on a gravel road.
A nice
Windy day.
Texas day in January.
We dumped the street glide at a Tractor Supply because we knew it was going to be a gravel road. So she jumped on, and here we are.
We finally made it out on the property at Los Lomos Ranch. Now we're following the truck through this pasture to get back to Union Cemetery. Say hi, Ross.
Hi, how's it going? Stopping right here.
Okay.
Oh, geez. Woo, that's a workout. So after we got access and we made it across the pasture and got there, talk about that tornado, because I think it kind of affected where you were from too.
I believe it was part of the tornado systems that happened May of 2015. Large tornado system came through East Texas. It came through that town of Buffalo where the Los Lomos Ranch was, and it continued up east into Van Zandt County, hit my hometown of Van. Very devastated, horrible night of tornadoes that night, and also hit the Union Cemetery where Zoroaster Robinson is buried.
Yeah, so and we're talking to Randy, he was our guide, and we're talking to him, and that tornado came through, and we got there, and it was just like tree stalks. I mean, it was very kind of horrible looking. Really, it's kind of a pitiful looking deal. But one of my cousins, Doug Robinson from the Robinson side, had been there in 2013. I went to Facebook and stole this photo of him when he was there, and it was beautiful.
Yeah,
and it was
very
tree
beautiful.
lined, and they had picnic tables and all that stuff. But
Trees with lots of shade, and a very nice place to visit back then.
Yeah, and luckily the graves are all low markers. Some of them were broken. Randy, I'll let him talk a little bit about his story right here.
What year it was, and they found this cemetery, and it was just a few graves out there, and it was all Union soldiers.
Okay.
And they pinned the cows up in this brush right here with the dogs, and they got out and started looking around. They found all those graves. And then he told my granddaddy was a young boy at that time, and he is married. See the Durant family? See Ryder there?
Yeah, I do. I see it.
That's my granddaddy's daughter,
Okay.
and she was like 70 something when she died. Wow. My mother's buried here. My dad, my granddaddy on both sides. Grandmother.
So, Randy, that cool. I'm sorry it was so windy. It was windy out, and we're kind of recording this on an iPhone, so we'll upgrade eventually and get some microphone. But
Well, you can't ever predict the wind.
no,
so.
you can't. But it was so cool for Randy because if you couldn't hear him, he said that his great grandfather, 100 and something years ago, was herding cattle, and he pushed them into that little grove of trees and then dismounted and found a gravestone. And then from that day forward, his great grandfather, his grandfather, his dad, and him have been kind of ranching that area, and they're caretakers. Him and another lady, and they've taken over the care of the cemetery, and it's truly like a labor of love for them. He comes out and maintains it. He said at least twice a year he comes and weed eats it. But he said his grandfather used to use a hoe,
Yeah.
a hand hoe.
To hoe the weeds out of the cemetery, and
Yeah,
he did a great job until unfortunate tornado.
yeah. So it took us a little journey, but finally we finally found his grave, which was exciting. And once we found that, we kind of looked around, and we also found his his second or third wife. He had 3 wives, so Matilda was her name. But it's crazy back then they just put
The wife of Zoroaster Robinson.
yeah, wife of Zoroaster Robinson. But in kind of down at the ground, you could see where it started to say Matilda, like they put her name down there. So that was really cool. And we found out that every September they do a meeting at Jewett, Texas. They used to do the meetings out there where they had porta potties and they had picnic tables and had an awning. They don't know where the awning went. It disappeared.
Yeah.
One of the porta johns is gone. They don't know where it went. So they're doing it in Jewett, Texas, and I want to be a part of that in September and help them out any way I can to maintain this because it has a lot of history. And I think it's crazy. I wonder how many of those same cemeteries are on ranches somewhere in the middle of nowhere that
maybe forgotten.
maybe forgotten. So, yeah.
We did find one that, unfortunately, a baby was buried there in April 2021. So it's still an active burial site. So it's pretty cool.
Yeah. And Randy said in that video that his grandfather, his father, his grandmother, and her aunt, and his whole family, and eventually it was funny, he pronounced it the Durant family.
And
but
Durant.
The Durant family. So they'll all be buried out there. They still, and he said after the tornado, when they put the fence back up, they actually took more land in because he said the original cemetery lease was larger than what the ranch owner had provided. So they expanded that out, and they have proof that they have that. It actually should be bigger, but that gives them a lot more space for those families that are still out there. So then we had to get out of there.
Yeah,
And,
so I had to jump back on the back of the bike.
Yeah, that's kind of strange for her, and it wasn't too bad, but thank God for the GS. And here's a little clip of that. so that was our adventure. It was kind of rough going through there.
Yeah.
And you could hear my bike the fans were coming on because I was going so
It
slow.
was getting warm that day.
Yeah, it was getting pretty warm. And we knew we had to get back. We just kind of abandoned Randy and his ranch hand out there and went through the gates, but he said he'd be right behind us. So, but we had, had to get back home because we were 3.5 hours?
Pretty close to it.
3.5 hours from home, and it was going to get dark. So, and we're retired people. We don't like to ride in the
Buffalo's
dark.
just east, across the map from Waco. So
Yeah, south of
give you an
Corsicana.
idea where it's at.
Yeah, south of Corsicana down there. And I want to, as usual, I want to leave you with a little video of what it's like riding with Jackie on the Street Glide. And so I'll show you that, and then we'll see him next time, right?
Yeah.
All right, it was fun. All right.